Over to now.
All right, good evening, everyone. It's been a while. So it's good to see everyone. I'm going to call this meeting to order. Our first item on the agenda for tonight is approval of the agenda.
So moved.
All right, second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? All right, next agenda item is approval of the minutes. Did everyone get a chance to review the minutes?
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All righty. The next item is the Williamsburg Park Subcommittee presentation. And we have the mayor with us tonight who's going to give us some information on this item. So, Mayor Sammy Phillips.
Thank you, Mr. Rogers. And thank you for allowing us to come here tonight and talk with you a little bit about this 400-acre purchase that the council approved back in early or later part of last year. This land, as you know, is in the Williamsburg plantation area, and we purchased it for the purposes of future recreational opportunities. And as you know, we got a pretty good price on it because it was under the tax value, and it's in a prime location. When I say prime location, over on at the extension of Western Boulevard as it runs into the Williamsburg area, you know, you still have access to a lot of things there, and there's a lot of people that have access to the park there. Future growth, depending on what we decided to put on that property over the next several years. We know that particular area is strong as far as having restaurants, hotels, places, you know, for tourism type events, you know, such as, you know, if we were to develop a lot of fields, or if that's the course we take, you know, that we could bring tournaments in, which, you know, would bring in, you know, a good amount of money into the community. It'll also satisfy the growing needs that we're going to have on just a normal recreational basis. Now, it's been pointed out to me that there's, and you can, Dr. Woodruff can correct me if I'm wrong, but there's over at least 1,000 new homes that are scheduled to be built in that particular area. And it's not just there, but there's other residential areas are popping up again. So, you know, when we talk about addressing future needs, I think those needs are going to come a lot sooner than we first anticipated they would. Our subcommittee, you know, Mr. Jackson, Councilman Jackson, Councilman Ward, and myself, we were appointed by our council to guide in the development of the property and to bring back to the city council a full recommendations as to what we saw would be the best use of the property. But, you know, over the next few months, we're going to be talking to a lot of people, other subcommittees. Our subcommittees will meet with many groups. We started with you, as a matter of fact, the Recreation Board. You know, we're better to start, but you're on Parks and Recreation Board, you know, as far as receiving input, because we do value, you know, what you deem as possibilities for this land that we have for recreation purposes. Now, again, like I said, as the City Council's Advisory Committee on Parks and Recs, it's fitting for you to be the first ones to discuss this whole project here. We know that your interest, you wouldn't be on this board if you didn't have an interest in, you know, the future needs for recreation and parks. So several weeks ago, the full council had the opportunity to go out to the property. It's located, again, like I said, if you look at, if you're going down Western Boulevard and you go through the intersection over there where you have the CVS and the Lowe's Foods and all that, if you just keep right on going, if you go too far, you're going to end up in a river. I don't think you can get there via car right now, but the property's back in that area there. We did have an opportunity to go out there and view it, and I'm going to let Councilman Warden, we got a video that we're going to watch, if it's queued up, and show you a little bit about our tour that when we went out there. We picked a time of year that we went because we know that, as the weather warms up, I don't want to be walking around out there, right now. So, anyway, Mr. Warden, as soon as we get our video up.
There's our handsome city manager and some of our staff. That looks like that goes out towards the Lauradale, I believe. Is that Lauradale on the north side up there? Yes, sir. There's a big power line that goes down there from you see across Gum Branch Road, and they have a big substation sitting there. And so we go to basically that power line, or to actually past it to the edge there.
This is with one of our drones that's taking the
Yep,
pictures.
yep. And of course, you see the area that's kind of brownish, that's all wetlands. And you see a wetlands, you see a creek going across the middle. That's one of the first things that we're going to have to spend money on. In fact, we've already engaged the old Stewart, I think it's Tidewater, I think Tidewater and Associates now, Old Parker. They're doing the design on the crossings for us. They'll have to size the culverts big enough to handle whatever size roads we're putting in there. I think we're going to go for a minimum of a four width wide road system back there at some point, but obviously, and there's another crossing right there that we're going to have to navigate around. We may reroute the road a little to the right of that, just so that we don't have to spend money on that particular crossing. I'm not quite sure, but we're heading back towards Williamsburg Plantation folks there. To the, I believe, to the top would be towards the river. Mm-hmm. And there's some hunting blinds back in there. Folks have deer hunted. I believe some folks have probably even gone back in there and shot wood ducks. So there has been some hunting in the past from the previous owners, and of course we will not be allowing hunting on this particular property. You see a little green area, you see the trees, and then you see a wetter area to the left. That looks like some sort of a stagnant pond that's back there. You can see a little bit more than a quarter of the 400 acres are in wetlands, including the stream crossings and so forth. But that particular stream crossing right there is actually, when you get back to the north side of to the top side of that picture, is very steep in there, very hilly, and has some nice ravines. One of the things you might envision in there would be some sort of a zip line. It wouldn't necessarily be a particularly long one, but it would certainly be a very high one because it's pretty steep in there. Now you're looking back up towards the top there was Williamsburg Parkway again, or Plantation, excuse me. We picked a good dry day. Normally you would probably want to make sure that you had four-wheel drive riding on the road that we're on right now. We tried to beat the ticks. There's a little hunting area right there, hunting stand. Tried to beat the ticks and the snakes. To the top is towards the river.
See how small we are.
mention anything about the elevations out there.
Yeah, it's a good rolling, where you see the intersection right there is somewhere close to the high point of the property and about where we park, somewhere in there. And it's a good rolling land. The majority looks like it's well drained, with the exception of the wetlands area, obviously, but the uplands look very well drained. Looks suitable for us to be building whatever we want to do. Not just fields, but certainly will support buildings of some sort whenever we decide just what buildings, when we as a community decide what buildings are going to go out there.
As Councilmember Warden pointed out, one of the first things that we're going to have to do is cross that one area there going into the road. That's going to be an expense right around $350,000 is what we estimated that was going to be. But without that crossing, the rest of the property is pretty much inaccessible. Plus, there's a permit that's valid until late '23. Am I remember that correct? Towards the end of 2023, and to renew that permit might be a challenge for us to wait past that period to go forward with that crossing. So that's something that is priority number one. There have been some areas that have been identified as other crossing areas that may have to be dealt with. But, you know, those are ones that can be put off a little ways. As far as secondary access, that's something that's still in the planning stage, and we can look at that later on down the road too. But, you know, as we develop the property, that would come into play.
That $350,000 plus whatever is really not any road at all. It's just the crossing itself. Putting the culverts in, putting the soil, whatever, so that we can at some point come in and attach a road to it, and obviously pave or whatever we end up doing. But and we're spending roughly $25,000, I think, just on design, basically kind of a road layout so that it incorporates the road, the wetlands crossing that we're anticipating. So.
There was apparently at some point in time, there was some type of temporary crossing that was made there, because most of that was laying in the creek itself when we went back there. But we'll want to make sure that we build something that's going to last a while when we do go back in there.
That one crossing is going to be kind of wide. That's the one where I told you the ravine. You can see a little to the right-hand side, you can see a jet out of the Williamsburg plantation area, like a nose head coming out, and that's that steep area. And then our crossing, it will be just to the north, just to the left of that, up, and it's going to be very wide and very steep.
Come off of Western Boulevard or come off the road that's inside Williamsburg? I think that bottom road is.
We'll come off of Western. That'll be for traffic. We just utilize that's a temporary road that goes to a
Pump station.
Lift station, pump station, and so they're going through the neighborhood. But once we start developing that, we'll come off of Western.
So I think one of the things that we did want to do tonight is to get some feedback from you, members of our Parks and Recreation Advisory Council, as to what you see or what you hear as far as possibilities with this property in the future. I want to open that up for a discussion, perhaps. Mr. Maxwell.
I have two questions. Laureldale and Williamsburg, I'm glad Ms. Lori said something. It seems like there'll be access from Williamsburg, but will there be access from the Laureldale side into it as well?
At this time, we don't have a planned access from Laureldale. I mean, it's something that can be looked at in the future, but, you know, right now, we're not looking at an access or egress there. Well, one thing is that Laureldale's outside the city limits of Jacksonville.
Right.
You know, so that would be the big hindrance in doing that. But later on down the road, who knows? You know, it may become such a popular place when it gets built up that we have to do that.
And the second part of my question was traffic mitigation in that area, because that is a rather congested area to go into that housing development. And if you do start having events, how wide is that road going to be?
That's a very good question. One that we really haven't looked at and studied very much at this point. But, you know, right now, even just for our city's recreational needs, it's going to generate traffic. There's no doubt about that when there's events or what have you there. So, I mean, that's something that's going to have to go into the planning process that we haven't quite reached that point yet.
Okay.
But it's a good point, a good question there.
We're going to design the crossings to handle a minimum 4 lanes.
Right.
We may end up just putting 2 for a while. And all we can afford is a two-lane road in, but the crossings themselves will be wider, will accommodate future growth and future expansion, whatever we might need.
Plus, that intersection there at Western and right there is regulated by a traffic signal also, so.
Okay.
We would not want to put a road into a residential area except as an emergency. We're planning on coming off Gum Branch, Western Boulevard for the traffic to help minimize the impacts on any of the neighborhoods that are back there.
And right now, the secondary accesses that we've looked at were mostly for emergency purposes at this point. You know, not necessarily where people will come in and out of, but say, for instance, you needed to get EMS in there or some other emergency response, you would have another route in at this time.
Similar to Branchwood, the Branchwood emergency access off of the bypass, back in there behind Lowe's. If you've ever gone back there on the bypass, you know there's a road that says official use only, do not enter, and so forth. That's kind of what we're envisioning right now, just some sort of a gravel road at some point in case we did have an emergency or we needed to move some traffic out elsewhere.
I appreciate those questions because those are ones that we need to make sure get in the mix as far as study is concerned. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
It'd be off of Fawn Trail. I live on Newport, so this butts up to my property.
I think that's where it's going to come out.
Hey, look,
I'm just kidding.
look, everything has a price. Everything's for sale. So Fawn Trail would be great for that, because even if they took it into, that goes into Jasna Field
Yeah.
back there, that could easily be an access. I purposely think that, you know, through years of traveling volleyball and years of traveling lacrosse, this would be a great spot for a multiplex, sportsplex, wherever you want to call it. And there's some good ones out there, and I can tell you there's some bad ones out there. I mean, and that would envision, you know, gymnastics upstairs, dance upstairs, you know, basketball courts, multi-basketball courts, multi-volleyball courts, indoor soccer, anything that we can envision. And then on the outside, soccer fields, more baseball fields because we don't have enough. But you know, living in Williamsburg, and the folks that know me there know that I'm on this board. And when this was announced, my phone was blowing up. And I think back in the day, I was contacting Susan on what's going on because of this. And I want to make sure that we communicate this to the citizens that live inside Williamsburg. That way they know what's going on. Because I heard, you know,
Well,
some
the
complaints.
Homeowners Association in Williamsburg is one of our stops as far as our planned meetings. So at that point, you know, anything that would impact the Williamsburg residential area would be able to be, you know, related to them.
Now, my squirrels live back in this area now. Those are my pets. So we got to make sure we
I'm
take care
sure
of the
there's still going
squirrels.
to be plenty of woods for the squirrels to play. So I hope anyway.
That would be my envision of this. I think our city, growing up here, we have really got to have some type of multiplex, sportsplex, some type of building where we can really grow off of.
What are your thoughts on entertaining outside organizations to come in and use the property, such as the Spartan Race or the Rugged Maniac, things like that. It would be a way to generate funds for that area as well.
Like a cross-country type
Right, yeah.
race.
They're actually trail races. And when Spartan and Rugged Maniac, things of that nature, when they come in, they bring their own obstacles and they set them up and then they clean it up and take it with them when they leave.
And I think that's one of the uses we have talked about. So, yeah, that's, that could be an excellent example of something you would want in that particular property over there.
Fayetteville has a huge Spartan race, and I can't tell you the number of people from this area that drive all the way to Fayetteville to run through somebody's farm. And I mean, this is exactly what they're running through. So
And
it's,
to your point, exactly, because I know Susan has ran it, on the air station when they do their
Tough Mudder.
runs, the hill runs, all that back trails.
yeah, we do the extreme endurance and the engineer run and also the Marsoc mud run.
Because I've ran all through here, I've biked all through here with my kids and hiked. And like you had said, Councilman Warden, there's all types of hills that you would be surprised, the elevation levels. And you do go through some muck. But
It's a way to utilize some of the land that we can't do anything else on as well, so.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
you're right, that elevation, it's shocking. I had no idea that we had elevation like that in Jacksonville. And I think Dr. Woodruff said we're dealing with almost 1 square acre of land. 1 square mile, excuse me, 1 square.
I think while we were out there stomping around, remember we walked over by where that little creek was and how sharp that drop was? It was 30 to 40 feet from top to bottom, so it's got some elevation to it over there.
Those races incorporate a weekend, and that would be a wonderful thing for, heads on beds for our tourism as well.
Part of what we wanted to do is make sure that, number one, we take care of the city's recreational needs, but number two, we want to have some sort of sports tourism so that we can generate, as you said, feet on sheets or heads on beds, whatever you want to call it.
Seats and sheets.
Yeah, feet and sheets. So, one of our group that we'll be meeting with will be the Jacksonville Alzo Sports Commission, talking with them so that they can give us some ideas. That the runs that you're suggesting right now sounds perfect. We're going to have, as Councilman Jackson said, we're going to have a lot of the wetlands area that we're not going to be able to build a building on, may not be able to do too much disturbing, but we certainly can put some sort of a trail or trails through there and make them maybe bicycle friendly, make them runner friendly, or special athlete, endurance athlete who wants to test themselves. There's certainly a lot of good possibilities there.
owls
Yeah,
back there,
yeah.
there's red-headed woodpeckers back there.
The best part about what we're doing here is this is going to be a community input. This is we want to know what the community wants, and it's not just going to be our council, it's not going to be the next council, we're looking at probably 20 years of input of the community involvement, community information, as we grow and as we can afford to do certain things. This will continue to evolve, this will continue to grow and expand, and I'm excited for the future because this is part of the future of the recreation for Jacksonville, not just Jacksonville, but really for Alzo County, so.
What is the acreage of Parks and Rec and all down at the Commons area? What does that sit on? How many acres?
It's a little over 100 developed that this city has right now. Now, initially, before that was an agreement with the school system, it was a little bit more than that, but right now, developed out there is a little over 100 acres. So really, you're talking about, if you can vision the commons, you're talking about the size of close to 4 commons out at this 400 acres. I mean, as, to put something to scale.
A lot of space.
Now, there are some wetlands within that, but I mean, it gives you an idea of the size and the magnitude of this piece of property.
I think it'd be.
Yeah, I think there's a great need there, but, the thing about it is, like Councilman Ward says, it's something, it's a work in progress. It's gonna be over a period of time. Nothing's gonna happen overnight, we know that, but we want to make sure that when we do start putting things in there, it's amenities in there, that we do it the right way, and don't impede the future growth of the park, of the area too. So I think that's real important. I think we are going to take our time as far as listening, before we break ground on the first thing, other than the crossing. Of course, the crossing's got to be done. We can't get around in there, so. But, yeah, any input, and we don't have to end that here tonight. I mean, if you come up with some brilliant ideas that you think might be fitting for this, please, by all means, let us know, Mr. Spring.
I had jotted a few things so I don't forget it. Number one, and I hope we remember this, is originally Western Boulevard, which runs to Williamsburg, was originally going to be a thoroughfare that was going to take you to the other side of the county. So if people in Williamsburg get all upset that you're going to have a major they're going to have a lot of traffic in there, you have to remember that this is a little bit better than what it was going to be originally. So that's a little less traffic. I see, immediately I can tell we need practice fields. I mean, we've got a lot of teams practicing in different places. Everywhere there's a flat area, they're trying to find a place to practice in somebody's backyard or close to somebody's development. And some of our parks are even trying to practice. We also need some game fields. And I would really, really, really be in favor, as you pointed out, build as much road access as possible. Because once things get tight and things start changing environmentally, you don't have that flexibility. Case in point is Hunter's Creek. If they had put that road in if we made them put the road in the very first, that both sections would have been connected and we wouldn't have had a problem. But after a while, environmental concerns start getting in and then you can't do the road. So I applaud you for thinking about the road access, and I agree with you, Mr. Ward, as wide as you can make it. And as many different places as we can get to, let's go ahead and get to now. So that if we decide to use it, we've got it, and if we don't, we just don't have some place sitting over that we can't get to. That would be a shame, that we'd have a big area that we could use for something, but the money it costs to get a road there would be in the millions of dollars now in the future. And it's not getting cheaper.
And it's not just roads. We're going to have to put water and sewer back there too.
Right.
We know there's going to be, if we do some sort of a multifunctional building, think about the bathrooms, the water, fire sprinkler. We're going to have several $1 million just in infrastructure before when it's all said and done, not counting the buildings or the fields themselves, just in the infrastructure, the roads, the water, the sewer, whatever. So.
And that's important, as far as your infrastructure, your roads, like you're talking about, is how to do that and make the best use of that property too, to, leave you the best areas to be able to put the fields you want or the buildings that you want or what have you. I know when Jason Houston did the little temporary plan for us, he took that piece of property and he stuck, what he would consider different little things. And it's amazing what all would fit on there, but, then you got to make allowances for, where you're going to put the road. Are you going to put the road in a place that will prohibit you from doing fields, doing a field or a series of fields or what have you? So it's going to take a lot of thinking there, critical thinking to make sure this gets planned out just right.
Think about just the parking requirements.
Yeah.
Hundreds and hundreds of parking spaces are going to be needed back there when it's built out. So, again, there's going to be a lot of money tied up just in things before we even really do any recreational stuff. But we're going to be building a little bit as we can afford it, as we find partners who want to partner with us. We're certainly going to be looking to Alzo County, the Sports Commission. Who else might be
Public-private partnership.
Some very private partners. Yeah, somebody has expressed some interest in coming in and putting some sort of a little private park of some sort in there to, like a water park, but, that may be dreams, but who knows yet? We don't know yet. So we're open to any and all partners who want to come in and help us fill out the vision of what this community wants and needs.
One thing, you all have the ears of the community, Like you said, there's a lot of people talking about you about issues, but also talking to you about what they want in that property. We can only do this one time,
I can tell you that, what Mr. Spring was talking about, the whole, the thing about the road connecting all the way to 53, we all knew that was, talk. So a lot of people moved out there just because of that. I do have a sidebar. In the very middle, there's a little itty bitty yellow square. I was wondering if that is,
Yeah, the lift station where you saw all of us park. It was like, it's a little bit of an open area, but that's where we all pulled up and parked it.
okay, but we would own that piece too, right? A lift station in there? Okay, I was just wondering.
There's a lot of possibilities for this property. The main thing is we secured the land. There's not a whole lot of land to secure in Jacksonville right now, and we're very, very fortunate, in this place and time to have this particular large amount of land. Because if you look around the city limits, there's no patches like that anywhere.
Large lands, and one of our criteria was reasonable access to the restaurants and hotels in the Western Boulevard area. So that's, we were thinking about heads on beds even early on. So this was a great buy for the city and will only bring benefits for the future. I mean, it's going to be a blessing at some point.
I know we might have brought this up the first time we came to you with information about the purchase of the property. There was some talk from some sectors that there was still property in the commons that could be developed for certain things. Well, as we explored that, we learned that the majority of that property over in the commons is wetlands. And I think it was like, there was 9 buildable acres in that remaining 200 and some odd acres over there. Am I remembering that correctly?
That was in the piece that was donated above.
The donated piece, yes. Yeah, it's like 9 buildable acres, and that was not all in one place. So you can see that, there's not a whole lot of open land to use anymore.
I have a question, and it is just a question. It's not a, I'm not asking if this is something that we can do. I'm just, if anybody's considered this. Has anybody thought about building a building out there large enough to act as a convention center of some sort? I know that is something that we don't have here in Jacksonville. We don't have in Onslow County. Greenville has it, New Bern has it, Wilmington has it, Myrtle Beach has it, and over $1 million alone, over $1 million, almost $2 million, goes out of this county every year for balls, for Marine Corps balls, to New Bern, Greenville, Jackson, to Myrtle Beach, things of that nature. We just don't have a place that's large enough for some of our larger units to have a Marine Corps ball. And for that matter, a wedding or any type of event that you may have. And you can also, that brings more tourism in. Has that been a consideration at all?
Yeah, it was brought up. I brought it up.
It's been brought up. Our top priority for this property, when we set out to buy it, was outdoor recreation. Okay, that was the main purpose, because we lack that in our city right now. I mean, we're having to, like you say, we're having to have practice fields and church parking lots and that sort of thing. So our first priority when we were looking at buying the land to start with was for outdoor recreation. Now, whether something like that would fit, is something that we should look into.
And when I say
if it's
that,
something the community can support, is the big thing. You talk about the balls. I mean, how many balls are there? At one time, at one
There
time.
are over, well, we have, I mean,
What's the date range?
the date range can be anywhere from the middle of October through December. And that was just one instance, that was just one idea, that's like 1 month. So in 1 month, if you have a ball every night or a ball at least on the weekends, I mean, that's money that comes into the city, but that's just one instance. If it was a multi-purpose, there's all kinds of different types of conventions that you can bring in. Sure. I mean, there's the sports cards conventions that you can bring in. There's the, all of the veterans associations that want to come in and visit, and they want a big place to get together and have their dinners. I mean, look at how often the National Guard Armory is used. It's just a thought.
If we build it right, if we build it right, it can be used in some of that. Because I can tell you, as a traveling volleyball mom, I've seen some places where you could do pretty much everything that you see. Maybe not have multi-balls going on at the same time, but you could have rooms upstairs for rent. And, I mean, it's amazing. I can tell you, out of my pocket since November traveling this year, and we just ended up this past Saturday, I probably spent about $8,000 just in traveling with volleyball. That could have came to our community. At least a percentage of it could have come back to our community.
Any building that you'd want to, you're talking about a convention center, you're talking about indoor sports. I mean, you would want it to be an all-purpose type facility that you could do both in, you know, that, like I said, you know, reason I ask you about the Marine Corps balls, they're usually in November, it's, you know, 1 month of the year or whatever. But you got to have something that's going to fill it 11 or 12 months of the year.
Yeah, like you said, it's like the amount of balls that they're having and the generation of income that comes into the area. And like you said, there's so many different events that the Marine Corps, I remember they used to have SISMs here back in the day. And I just met some young Marines that were boxing again. I didn't know we had a Marine boxing team again. So it's a lot of, and they travel a lot to other places because they can have these boxing matches in other places, but we don't host these things. So you're right. There's so much money that's leaving the area because we're not taking advantage of that, and we're growing and large enough and understanding that we're been a smaller town that's growing into a city. And we have a lot of people that participate in different sports. You talked about the outside complexes, but we had also talked about the lack of indoor complexes. So we have to try to make the best use of this property, this land, because we're not going to get this opportunity again. But it's good to hear you guys, you know, because you also have the ears of the community. So it's great, and you know what else is coming in. Sorry, Mr. Ross.
I agree with that. And, you know, what I'm saying is, you know, it's purchased for recreation purposes, so you would have to have something that's multi-purpose.
That's right.
If you're going to use it for what you're suggesting there. You know, there have to be some kind of recreation activity.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
To be able to fill it up. I mean, to be able to make it usable 12 months of the year.
I think what you're going to have here, to start off with, you've got the land, and
That's right.
put your fields in, whatever you think you have. If you have overflow now, back up. You satisfy that, but your big decision, and what you've already talked about, is going to be your complex. If you're going, how big it is, what's going to be in it, what you're going to decide to put in it, and how big it's going to be, and that's where your money's going to be, and that how big you decide that complex is going to be, and how much is going to be offered in that complex. That's going to be the big decision. If you go that route, but that'll be I think that's what you've got facing us, or the community. How big a complex you're going to put in there, and what's going to be available to the people in the community.
The other thing is too, we don't have the money to buy a lot of this stuff yet, or pay for it. You know,
Right.
That's something you got to take into consideration is.
Exactly.
How we're going to finance a lot of this stuff, which we really haven't delved into that at this time. And, that's the big part of it. You know, we got away with purchasing the property because we kind of swapped some property for some property, what it amounted to. You know, sold recreation land in the commons to the one place, I guess, what now was the Partnership for Children. And then we also sold some to a private developer to build affordable housing. And that money is actually being used to purchase that property. So, financing this stuff, is also going to have to be able to be put into the mix to get things going. It takes money to do a lot of this stuff, so. It's whatever your community can bear the cost, it's, when you can bear the cost, or when your taxpayers want to bear the cost.
Earlier, gentleman spoke about having practice fields for whatever sport it is. My kids went to Grants Creek. I never knew where it was at. But once I saw the location of it, that's a 30-minute drive from the Commons. A lot of those kids don't have that type of transportation. Now that we have the transit system here, I'm from Jacksonville, Florida. For $1, I could ride anywhere in the city, get a transfer and keep riding. And that's a great thing here. It gives the kids access to get to places. So you all build these facilities here, closer. It gives more kids opportunities to do something other than sit around and twiddle their thumbs, idle minds. And I thank Dr. Woodruff years ago for putting the lights in the Commons, because the kids didn't have anywhere to go at night. So we know what kids get into when there's nothing to do. I'm one of them. So I applaud everything we're trying to do here.
Yes, thank you.
Mr. Rogers, I guess we can go back and talk about, you look at the New River area, and when the Commons came, I mean, it left a hole in that area. That used to feed kids from downtown, Picketttown, Belfort, New River. We played football over at, which is now New Bridge Street, what used to be Jacksonville Junior High. And it became real difficult for children to get over there. And you talk about Grants Creek, at that point, we also had Mr. Taylor that used to pick up a lot of kids in vans and take them to Grants Creek. But like you said, that was out in the county. But he dealt with a lot of kids from the city to take them out of there.
Sure did.
Mike,
Yes,
or Susan, answer to this question. How many teams do you have going on at any one time? Teams, I'm not talking about leagues, but teams.
Right now, for youth, baseball and softball, we have, I want to say 22.
22 teams.
22. We have 16 volleyball teams, and 22. And then for adult sports, on the adult ball fields, we have about 26, I want to say.
And how many fields are they playing on?
There is 11. There's 8 at the Commons, and then a couple more over at Northeast Creek.
Do they usually reserve the fields for practice?
If there are leagues, those are just us. That is strictly us. We have many other groups that are using all of those fields. For example, we rent out the fields for many other things, like lacrosse is renting Northeast Creek. We have rugby on some of our fields. We have soccer on some of our fields. So we have a lot of other people. The numbers I just told you are strictly us, strictly our teams. And we reserve and do all of the practices and the games on our fields.
there's also an adult baseball league that
Baseball.
contracts our fields.
Carolina Men's League is playing at Kerr Street this year, but they normally use Jack Emiette. They use Kerr Street, as well as New Bridge Middle School uses it as their home team. It's Kerr Street Ball Field.
So you would say that you have a deficit, right?
I would definitely say we have a deficit. And we do have a deficit, I've been pretty vocal on the rectangular fields I just mentioned. We have lacrosse and rugby as a new sport. Both of them are renting our ball fields, and those are rectangular sports. We also do flag football ourselves. We have a league, and we do that at Phillips Park. So we try to take, like you said, any open, flat land we can, and we'll borrow and, try to utilize and partner up with the schools if we can. But they're using all of their fields, and, so.
I've noticed a couple times where I've seen, practices going on, like at the Old River Life Church and some other Brookwood and
A lot of that
places
is
like that.
probably JASA. The soccer going on out
So
there
it's
is
not
JASA.
ours.
No, JASA is another one of those agencies that are using our fields, other people's fields, their fields. You know, the need for the rectangular space is the same for a lot of those sports. The lacrosse is another one, soccer, lacrosse, flag football, and then rugby. I keep mentioning it because it's a new one for us.
In the Pop Warner leagues, I mean, look,
Oh
I
my
mean,
gosh, we have, that's great. Now, that's another one. I could go on about that one. We have groups using a Branchwood, using your football over there. We've tried to contact the football groups, but football groups kind of like pop up everywhere and then they're practicing. And then we get a call and we don't even know that they're using it, but the football groups are using all sorts of fields as well.
Yeah.
Anywhere you can find open, flat land, it's getting used, year
'cause
round.
I spoke to someone over the Pop Warner League last year, and they had at least 300 kids in that league.
And I'm sure soon you can open it up, right, to other,
Oh,
more
sure.
teams. Because
Oh,
I know the
sure.
volleyball's always probably sold out within a couple of days of it
Oh.
opening. Because I
Well, our
know,
indoor volleyball, I'll be honest with you, Laura, we have a waiting list and it filled up. Our youth volleyball league has been nothing but growth in the last several years, and we probably filled up that league within 5 days, if not less.
What
Sounds
about,
to me that's the immediate need.
Yeah.
But, you know, it's just my opinion. you know,
What about
Based on what she's telling
basketball?
me.
Basketball's tremendous. Basketball has definitely been growing. Our challenge with basketball is we do partner with the schools, and they use their spaces just as much as we need to. So we do have lots of basketball, but I'm also here to say that when Jack Emiette is complete in the fall, that will be, it's not going to solve all of our problems, but it will be a huge relief. So I can't thank you enough. I'm truthful when I say Jack Emiette is going to help give us some breathing room. We'll have basketball, volleyball, and pickleball.
Yeah, I was gonna ask
And
about
that will be a huge relief for all of those sports and just give us a little bit more resiliency in the fact that, you know, when you're challenged to use the school system and work around their schedule, it'll really help us when Jack Amiette comes back
how
online.
many basketball teams you have?
Oh, gosh, 56 we had this past season.
Wow.
56, that's all ages, but we had 56 youth basketball. But yeah, Jack Amiette is going to be
A lot of practices.
amazing. It's a lot of
It's a lot
practice.
of practice space.
And I'll be honest, when you're challenged with scheduling, you end up taking away either your practice amounts, your practice times, your practice days.
Yeah, you gotta have
You
games
have
and
to work within the schedule, and we never want to take kids away from from being able to participate, but at some point you have to cap it off because you're not going to have any practice. You're just going to have games. It's just going to be a real challenge. So we try to do the best we can with every space that we have, but, the indoor space is our biggest challenge because we can't make indoor space, but Jack Amiette will help.
Said earlier, right now, when basketball was going, when I come home, that parking lot is packed. And all you see is people crossing over, searching for somewhere to park. So,
We actually grew. We had 55 youth basketball teams pre-COVID, and we hit 56 this year. So it just tells us that, parents and kids are getting back out there and they're enjoying everything. I'll also tell you that we started indoor soccer leagues. So futsal is an indoor soccer program. We started that off just as just to see how it went last year. We had enough to start both a men's and a women's league. So we had a total of, I want to say 13 teams in indoor soccer. And they're only playing at the Commons, and their only slot is on Sunday afternoons. Because that's all you get. That's Sunday afternoons is it. That's on top of the pickleball in the mornings, and so, yeah. It's just a lot of scheduling information for you all, but if you ever have any more questions, I'm happy to answer.
Any more questions?
what's the next step?
Well, like I said, we have other groups that we're gonna talk with, we got a long list. I don't have a copy of our schedule of events, but I think, I know like I mentioned to you, talking with the homeowners association in Williamsburg. It's further down the line, but, You know, we have other people like the Sports Commission, and others,
County schools.
county school system. So, you know, we still have a lot of searching to do and trying to gather as much information we can and try to do this in the best possible fashion.
Tom Brady, see if we can't get some of his money in our, if he wants to have a,
You know, if you do have good, there you go. If you know anybody of that nature or of that inclination, please send them our way, because we can sure use the help.
I know it sounds silly, but, I mean, there's plenty of people
Right.
that, Marines that come in our area, Navy guys that have made it big, and it might be something that's worth, hey, I'll write a letter.
And that's not a bad idea, though, having
You
guys
go
like
to
that.
you go to places
yes
like
if you don't
Charlotte
ask.
or Raleigh or
That's right.
Greensboro, you don't see City of Greensboro multi-complex on the building. You don't see City of Raleigh on the building. You see corporate names.
Right.
What's the one in Raleigh called?
PNC. We got
PNC.
PNC.
Yeah. But
And then we have individuals like Mr. Bob Sanders, who is a professional, well, he's an NFL coach, and Mr. Tyrone Willingham, who, you know, those guys, you know,
they might know somebody.
He's getting ready to retire. We can stay on for 5 more years and donate his wages.
that Clemson money this way.
But, you know, I'm just saying that, you know, a lot of these are, you know, public-private partnerships that are involved in corporations that have very deep pockets that can do these sort of things. Now, whether or not they want to invest in Jacksonville is a whole different story, you know, that's the problem we've always kind of had is, you know, they use a lot of their assets in larger areas, you know, which
The-
business-wise makes sense for them.
If I'm not mistaken, last time we spoke about this, you all had a timeline that these events were supposed to happen in?
Yes.
Or
We had a
attempting to.
proposed timeline that we were looking at, and I can't, for the life of me, remember what's on that without looking at it.
I tried to finish the input sessions by October, November.
October or November, okay. Finishing public input sessions. Then from there, we're talking about design, architecture, and that sort of thing that has to be done. And again, once we figure out what we're going to do, it's a matter of having the funding available to be able to do it. And hopefully by then we will.
Thank you for allowing us to be involved in this process.
Yeah. Well, we value your input. And you know, like I said, you all are the first ones up to bat because you are our advisory committee. And who else, who better to go to, right?
All right.
Anybody else have anything,
Anything else?
right? Okay. You're gonna finish early, go ahead.
Our next agenda item is our council liaison report. So, Mr. Jackson?
Well, we talked about the main part right here, but I can say that I've been visiting the parks, and I tell you that people are definitely out there.
Yes.
They are.
You know, it's good to see that everybody is about out there. But one of the things I wanted to bring up, because I was out catching kids coming down the slides, and some of them, when they came, the little ones, they would fly down the slides. And I saw one, I mean, fortunately, we got rubber,
Right.
you know, but see if there's any way to kind of stop that process or slow them down a little bit, you know. And then there was, I might have to go out there with you.
Right,
And kind of
please.
explain some things about it. But, I mean, it's just,
What
it's,
location are you?
I was over at Georgetown. But a lot of people accessing that park and other parks around the city. So,
Go down, Mr. Jackson.
you know, when you talking to, and it was great to see little kids outside playing. I mean, little boys, I want to take a pine cone, you know. They didn't start throwing at each other yet, but that's probably in a couple of years. But, and you're right, they're just doing it. But I just want to make sure that we don't have any larger problems, you know.
Well, the good news about those slides that are where they're set is, and you know, anybody can get hurt at any time.
Right.
But with that rubberized surface there, or even our
right.
sand surface, you know, it is there from a height perspective to the thickness of the rubber that hopefully they would be all right if something bad, if they did slip or go down too fast or any of those things, that the rubberized surface would help cushion the fall a little bit for them.
I saw a little one climbing that was a little concerning for me,
Yeah.
and he wasn't being watched at the time, so, yeah, we'll
That's
take the
it.
visit together.
Sure.
But other than that, that's about it for me.
Awesome.
For Mr. Jackson. Next agenda item is our Planning Advisory Board Liaison Report.
Yeah, we had a meeting in March. To take you back, before March, our last meeting was in October, so it was quite a while. But we did have an agenda item on the March agenda. We looked at a special use and type 3 site plan for a U-Haul storage unit, which is off of Western Boulevard. It's actually property that River of Life owned and sold, and so it sits sort of, it has access on Western Boulevard. It's sort of next to AutoZone in that area. So that was all we had to rule on that. And we also met about changing some restrictions on buffering for people that had lots that were corner lots, because our process, we thought it made it more difficult for people who had corner lots. So we've tried to lighten it up a little bit better for them to make it a little easier. Anything to make it easier for the citizens to enjoy their property and build. And that's it for me.
Springs? Any questions? Next, we have our member comments and park reports. Mr. Ross?
Wooten Park was in great shape. The only thing, the water fountain, and I imagine that was because the water was turned off but park was in great shape, restrooms clean. All the equipment was in order. Had a few people out there in the middle of the afternoon last week. And,
Bless you.
everything was in great working order, very neat, well kept.
Thank you.
Everything looked good.
Ms. Reed?
Richard Ray looked good. There was people out there running around and playing. Springtime coming up, you got flowers and you got the trees starting to come alive. So everything was fine there. Everything was in working order that wasn't already turned off. Jack Amiette, really, the building's coming along. I know we've had a hiccup there, but it's coming along and there's still people out there playing basketball. There was a gentleman out there a couple nights a week. I think it's Tuesdays and Thursdays. He has a youth team out there picking up, playing ball, and they're, doing what they can and enjoying it. So the benches are in good working order and the fence around it. So,
It's come along. I think we have some pictures to show in a few.
right. And the field looks great, pretty out there, so.
Yeah, it does.
Brook Valley looks great, and Northwoods does too. I have a question, though, about the Northwoods. Do you know, right by the road, there's 2 rocking horses? Now, I meant to ask this before, and they're older. They're older. They still work, but as a mom, I'm looking at their proximity to the road. They're very close to the road. Has anybody ever complained about
Northwood?
those or said anything? I never see kids on them. I was just wondering if they're just kind of left over and been there, so they're still there.
They were there since I was in school.
They've probably been there for a while. We can look at that, though, definitely, but you are the first person. That doesn't mean that it's not something we need to look at either, though.
I have little kids again, and my thought is always they're going to run too close to the road. Just
We'll
had
be
that
happy,
question.
we'll look at it tomorrow. Thank you.
All righty, I guess I'm next. So, Georgetown Park, I went out there this weekend, and there was a ton of people out there. There's a birthday party going on, so it's being used. It looked really good. Bathrooms look good. The basketball court was clear. Everything just looked good out there. Sturgeon City, same thing. The playground was filled with kids, so, it's a good thing. So the weather was nice, and both parks look good. No concerns at all. Mr. Maxwell.
Good afternoon again. The Commons, well, I'll start with Phillips Park. Phillips Park has some usage. There's usually somebody sitting under the cabanas, eating or just hanging out, someone over there fishing. You see a few kids out there playing around. And the Commons, the amphitheater's great. I see people, kids running up and down the hill. The basketball courts are packed just about every day unless it's raining or too cold. The tennis courts are used for a multitude of things, from people throwing the ball at their dog to teaching their kids to ride a bike to, there's even people that play soccer on it in the afternoons, as well as the schools are engaged in tennis right now as well. The gazebos, I've seen several parties at the one in the back of the park. Question about that. Is there any proposed parking gonna come to that little area where you have access to that gazebo right before you get to,
Smaller gazebo?
yes, the Starbucks?
Probably not. The problem with putting parking there is you would be getting closer to the ball field, and if you wouldn't want to put,
No, I'm talking, when you're going to, it's Common South,
About the big shelter at the end of the parking lot now?
yes. Not the, where the basketball court is, where the flags are and all the way in the back. That small gazebo.
seniors one. It's the one where the seniors are. The smaller of the two. Correct.
Like
Yeah.
you're going to Starbucks.
Right. Oh,
Oh,
that's
he's at
Richard
Richard
Ray.
Ray.
I
Yeah,
apologize.
Richard
That's
Ray.
Richard Ray Park.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
I thought,
That's all right.
You had all of
So
us stumped for a minute. Okay. Good answer. Yeah.
Before I answer that, I just wanted to say this about the Commons, and if you haven't been out there in the last week, we have just rubberized that surface
great.
over there on the playground. And for those of you that don't know, when the Commons was built and that playground was put in, it was a very busy playground.
Yeah.
It was extremely busy, and for one reason or another, we started building playgrounds just after that with rubberized surfaces, and the first one we did was Richard Ray. And unfortunately, that was almost the death of the Commons playground, because parents would go to Richard Ray. Our hope, and I think what we're already starting to see, is by rubberizing the Commons playground, we're going to give Richard Ray some breath back, because we're already seeing an uptick at the Commons playground. And hopefully, some of those people who were always going to Richard Ray now will, that all that congestion that's over there will maybe move to a larger parking area, things like that. So I just wanted to make you aware of that if you weren't aware of it. Now, the Richard Ray shelter, I'm not sure that right now we're in a planning mode to create a road to that shelter. And there is a stub out access point there.
Yes.
Kind of like a service road that we talk about for other areas if there was ever an emergency. But we've been reluctant to put a road in there, and much like the mayor and others have talked about, I think Mr. Spring talked about this, I'm not sure it's cost effective at this point to even put a road back there. If we did, we would kind of cut the park in half too.
because the little stub, that's why I see people offload.
Right, they
their
do,
stuff,
yeah,
And
absolutely.
they walk it
Right,
over
right,
there.
absolutely.
And my next question, on the pond side of the crosswalk, there's a light. But on the other side, will there ever be a light put there? Because that's a dark side, that side's dark.
Security light. Is that what you mean, a security light, a
Right.
night light?
Right there where the crosswalk is. It's one on one side, close to the pond,
Oh, I see what you're
but
saying.
not on,
On Richard Ray side,
yes.
on the parking lot
Talk to the
side.
transportation people, they pretty much handle our security lights, but we can have them look into adding one over there
Okay.
and take it from there. In 2
And the-
months, I can let you know, or,
And the domes in the Commons parking lot, where the old skateboard park they were repaired. They were the globes.
Yes,
they were-
yes, the globes, yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Sir. Did I miss you?
It's okay.
I'm sorry, Mr. Spring.
Branchwood, when I was checking on Branchwood, I was the fifth car there, so I was almost parked in front of somebody's driveway, so Branchwood's being used by somebody, I just couldn't get close enough to go up and see who it was, and I didn't really want to bother them while they were doing whatever they were doing. But it is being used. Sherwood Forest was not, but it still was clean and well-kept. We've already talked, the water fountain there is not working. I do know how to work it, but, I believe this culprit has to do with where you turn the water on and off at. The cap needs to be replaced, but then you know that. And on the far end of Sherwood, there's a swing set that goes like this, and there are two swings on it. And I believe that at one time I could probably figure out all 9 of the colors that it was once painted. And I don't know if that was the intentional theme, that it looks like 900 different colors, or I really don't know what you could do with it. I'm pretty sure if you paint it, it will just be another color that will come off. And if you sandblast it, it might fall apart. So I'm not sure what you'd do. That's it for me.
I would like to make a comment about one of the things you did talk about. So you've all been really good about when you go through the parks, shoot me an email, a text message, and not wait till tonight, because we want to be able to fix it. And you are a great set of eyes for us. It's very beneficial to me, to the residents, to our staff. And a lot of you are doing that, and I appreciate it. What I do want to make you aware of, and if you would stay in mind with this, make us aware if you see things like the water fountain, and I know we had talked a little bit before the meeting started. One of the things that we're running into is when things are breaking, we are months out on getting the items in to repair them. And I'll give you an example. We have a slide down at Phillips Park. We're 3 months out. I've ordered the slide. It can't be here for 3 months, though. So we block off that section of a playground, and you're able to use other areas of it. But when you see that, call me. We will hear you. We will look to remedy it. But we are seeing some of this supply chain things that are backing us up on. We're just not able to get it at this point. So just be aware of that. Those are challenges for us moving forward. Thank you.
For that, Mr. Spring.
No, it's okay.
All righty. Next item is One City Moment.
I think we have some pictures of some progress at Jack Amiette. If our lovely media folks could show that, and then we'll do the One City Moment. I'm hoping anyway. Yeah, there we go. So our engineering folks, they were able to send us this picture this afternoon. So this is as of this afternoon. As you can see, this is inside of the gym, basically, the walls going up. It's really impressive when you drive by. It's a big building. They did have the steel rafters delivered last week. I had a meeting, and those were impressive as well. So it really is coming along. They're doing an excellent job with staying on their timeline. So as of right now, we're looking at a September, October opening, if everything goes according to plan. But these are some really nice pictures. You can get the scope of it, but it is going to be a tremendous asset. So again, I can't thank you enough. I'm thrilled. And so will the kids and all of our folks that are going to be able to utilize it. But it's coming together. It's great to see it come out of the ground. So, all right. So that is an update on our Jack Amiette. And our One City Moment is actually something we were very proud to be able to provide. Our festival, Winterfest, this past February. We did a little bit of a hybrid situation with our Winterfest event because of COVID, but the new thing this year is we are the proud owners of the slide and the snowmaking equipment. So we're really proud to say that we were able to purchase it. The company we've been using for years basically defaulted due to, not defaulted, went out of the snow business during COVID. And we jumped right on it and, you know, basically made a plea and made an offer. And so Parks crew did an amazing job with training and learning how to use that snow equipment. Dr. Woodruff was there all day, along with this Parks crew, but we were able to do this, and it was just so nice that we could keep up with our standard of providing excellent and quality events to our citizens. So we had a great day. It was a beautiful day for it, and nothing but smiling faces. So we're really, really happy on what we can do with this equipment moving forward. But overall, Winterfest was a great event. Jamboree is next, and we have a whole slew of summer programs and egg hunts and all this other stuff. I won't even go into detail, but I would encourage you to be friends on our Facebook page because we have it all. So it was a great day.
And attendance was up.
It was very much up. It was, we didn't have any restrictions on attendance, so it was come all. And I think families are just, again, they're ready to get out there. And it was a beautiful day. It really was. And the snow is a big draw, but it was great, great, great attendance. It was wonderful to be there, so. Any questions for me or Michael?
The Riverwalk Marina, how are we with occupancy? How's that going?
I mean, I get some interest, but, you know, we've had a few people show interest, but for one reason or another, they don't necessarily follow through with the lease agreement. I'm hoping that now that it's getting nice out and people are going to put their boats, we do have a special, basically buy 3 months, get a month free. So I'm hoping that will appeal to some of our summer renters.
Okay, and the kayak gentleman's gonna be out there again?
Well, the kayak, we're not going to pursue because we're really excited that we're going to be able to hopefully have a construction zone down there this summer with the pavilion, so.
So we are in the process of getting ready to send out a bid package to build restroom facilities down at the marina, which will also have a kayak rack. We'll be able to house kayaks down there. We'll build a couple of shelters down there and obviously do some landscaping. And, you know, that's a nice amenity today. And these things, you know, adding restaurant rooms down there, as we all know in the downtown area, they're sorely needed. That will be a benefit, and then we'll beautify that area down there. And it's going to look very different, very good, but very different in the next, you know, 6 to 8 to 12 months. It's just going to be another great purchase and another amenity to not just the park system, to the city as a whole. I mean, it's just really going to be nice down there.
I have a question of, Dr. Woodruff, when is the transportation center gonna, do you have, do we have a line on when that's gonna officially open? I see a lot of cars there now.
Good evening. We are currently waiting on some of the last hardware. Michael mentioned a few minutes ago the backlog that he has on things such as swings and slides. Some of the important equipment for the Jacksonville station has now recently arrived. The long benches that help us create the theme for the 1940s bus depots came in 2 weeks ago. So we would hope that sometime between now and 2050, we have moved the staff in, which was a major step, and we would hope that by May the 1st, we would be able to be fully operational. So, good. Now, while I have you, I would like to take just a minute to thank you for everything you've done over the last 10 or 12 years. I want you to think back about the way the parks were 10 or 12 years ago. And with that, I want to commend the mayor and council and all of y'all for the fact that you have made a priority of rebuilding every one of your parks. You've now created a master plan to guide the parks, those that exist, and now you're working with the mayor and council on creating the master plan for the major 400 acres. So here's what I'd like for you to do, and I do this with the staff all the time. Everybody raise their right hand. First thing I have to do is make sure that all the council know which is the right. Sorry about that. Everybody raise the right hand. Turn it backwards. Now pat yourself on the back. You folks are to be truly commended for the work that you with the city council have done to rebuild the park system and to prepare this community for the next 20 years. Well done.
Over there, doctor.
Yeah.
I think, I'll speak for myself, but I think kudos to you and what you've done for our community has been top notch. And you're going to be sorely missed, sir.
Well, we have a great staff, we have a great council. It's through the cooperation that anything happens. It is not because of one person, it's because of the team. And I can tell you, the team still exists. After May 23rd, the team will continue to exist, and I have nothing but great aspirations and confidence that what has been occurring will continue. I'm looking forward to 10 years from now coming back and seeing what the new sports facility at the Williamsburg plantation is going to look like. But again, I thank you each for the input you've given and for the faithful service that you give. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All righty. We have any more comments or anything anybody wish to make? Well, we're going to adjourn this meeting. Next, all right. Second. I was getting ahead of myself, wasn't I? Ready to get out of here. All right. I want to thank everybody for coming tonight. Next meeting, May 23rd, and we'll see everybody then.